Our presentation is on icons and images in Christianity. An icon, from the Greek word ikona meaning image, is a religious work of art, most commonly a painting from the Eastern Orthodox Church, Oriental Orthodoxy, and certain Eastern Catholic churches. Characters that show up often are Christ, Mary, saints, or angels, and they're usually in scenes that relate to liturgical celebrations. The use of icons in Christianity is to provide believers with a way to connect with the spiritual world and inspire worship. In its broadest sense, an icon is any representation of a sacred personage, produced in many medium sizes. Christian art first appeared in the catacombs, which were underground burial places. The images painted included scenes from the Old Testament. What could not be openly expressed by Christians because of the fears of persecution was portrayed in a symbolic language, a secret code used by believers in a hostile world. When Christianity was no longer a forbidden religion, Christian art left the catacombs and moved rapidly. After recognizing Christianity as a state religion and naming Constantinople the imperial capital, Constantine the Great commanded the construction of many beautifully designed and decorated churches. Indifferent to art until now, the church becomes the strongest propagator of artistic expression. By the 8th century, icons had become a major part of Eastern devotion. A big reason for the creation of icons was to help inspire those who could not read the Bible. Most people who sought to convert to Christianity were illiterate and foreign, thus they could only rely on spoken word and images. Important events from the Bible were made into images so that people could more easily understand them. In the Orthodox Church, people would come to venerate the icons, which basically means to pay respect to what the icon represents by lighting a candle. However, not everyone thought that these icons were a good idea. The issue first became a major point of controversy in the 8th century under Emperor Leo III's reign. It is thought that Leo's iconoclastic position may have been influenced by Khalifa Omar II, who was unsuccessful in trying to convert the emperor to Islam, but probably convinced him that pictures and images are idols. In 726 AD, Leo III published an edict declaring images to be idols, forbidden by Exodus 20, verses 4 and 5. He commanded that all such images in churches be destroyed. Germanus, the Patriarch of Constantinople, protested against the edict and appealed to the Pope. Pope Gregory II responded to the appeal with a long defense of images, and he explains the difference between them and idols. But Leo remained steadfast, and the persecution continued to rage in the East. Monasteries were destroyed, and monks were put to death, tortured, or banished. In 731, Pope Gregory II was succeeded by Gregory III. He declared that all persons who broke, defiled, or took images of Christ, his mother, the apostles, or other saints were excommunicated. His work was carried on by his son Constantine V, who became an even greater persecutor of image worshippers than had been his father. His son, Leo IV, though he did not repeal the iconoclastic laws, was much milder in enforcing them. He allowed the exiled monks to come back, and he tried to reconcile all parties. When Leo IV died, the Empress Irene was regent for her son, Constantine VI, who was 9 years old when his father died. She immediately set about undoing the work of iconoclast emperors. Afterwards, the Second Council of Nicaea confirmed the use of icons and condemned the iconoclast leaders. To better understand the iconoclastic controversy, we need to know why there was opposition to Christian icons. In the Old Testament, Exodus 20, verses 4 and 5, warn us about graven images. It says, "Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness that in heaven above, or that in the earth beneath, or that in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them, for I, the Lord thy God, a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, unto the third and fourth of them that hate me." Those who oppose icons cite these verses and note that the divine is beyond all earthly form in its transcendence and spirituality. It is also thought that emperors like Leo III aspired to increase their influence and power among the people by removing images of religious figures and replacing them with portraits of themselves. On the other hand, Those who desired icons in church and their homes were called iconophiles. They emphasized that these images had only a representative nature. They also saw the need for icons to help the illiterate and foreign better understand the Bible. Pope Adrian I referred to the perspicuity of the icons when arguing in favor of them. This idea of perspicuity is the appeal to one's imagination to picture the biblical persons and events to oneself. The theologian who defended the use of icons in Christian worship was St. John of Damascus. In his treatise On the Divine Images, he writes, "If we made an image of the invisible God, we would certainly be in error. But we do not do anything of the kind. We do not err. In fact, we make the image of God incarnate, who appeared on earth in the flesh, who in his ineffable goodness lived with men and assumed the nature, the volume, and the color of flesh."
Even though there are a lot of different icons, there are a few that stand out within the Christian church. The first ever recorded icon is the Mandilion, which is also known as Made Without Hands. This is an important icon because it is said that this icon was the closest resemblance to that of Christ at the time of his life. Some believe that this is even an exact replication, even though it was not nominated until the 6th century. This could be because they thought maybe Christ had an actual interference with this. It's kind of debated still to this day. There are stories that the Mandilion even provided miraculous healings for people such as Abgar V the Black. Another famous one is the icon of the Virgin Mary. It is said that the Apostle Luke was the original artist of the Virgin Mary. This could be because some people believe because Luke was a very popular physicist and artist, so they think that he may have been the one, especially being able to be around during the life of the Virgin Mary, that he could have recreated this. The other common icons that are found are various saints and angels. Next, we have kind of the nature of the Christian icons. They are not really meant to be too much of significance. They're not typically considered sentimental, but more of a reminder during times of prayer. As you can see, there's no real emotions tied to the icons, as all characters within the icons never have their mouth open and don't really show a whole lot of emotion. It's very kind of blank stares, as you can see, kind of within these images. They're considered silent because the church does not want there to be excessive emotion expressed or seen as idolatry through the icons. So that's kind of one thing they try to keep, kind of common throughout. Next, we move on to the hand gestures. There are common hand gestures throughout the classical Greek and Roman culture that were used to spread Christianity. As shown in the image, these gestures were used throughout these cultures that are commonly understood by the general public. This could help with everyday gatherings to be able to understand the speaker or keep the crowd under control in large environments. As kind of seen above, certain gestures could be used for declaration, narration, or kind of wait for a moment as seen in this top left corner. In this bottom left corner, we have gesture expressing amazement or wonder as said, kind of to relay more emotion throughout the crowd. You got the bottom right and the top right kind of used as a little more to put more emphasis maybe on, things that are being spoken to the crowd. They could have large crowds. They need to be able to, kind of tame the crowd when things get riled up. As you can see, this can be kind of a general outline of maybe what someone would look like if they were used to talking to crowds. Spreading the gospel, whether that be at a church, which was a lot more public, obviously back then. This is just kind of showing a little bit of a replication of what that could possibly look like. So next we have colors of icons. It wouldn't really seem like it'd be that big of a deal. However, it obviously is. So there's a bunch of different colors within these icons that represent different things. So white is going to represent eternal life and purity. Blue shows God's dwelling place or the sky. Kind of just that usual where most people think that God within Christianity stays, or just in general. Red represents life and that of a healthy life along with it. Purple is a symbol of power, especially when it relates to wealth, royalty, and dignity. Green represents growth and fertility. They typically say it's in the sense of nature or vegetation, but it's really just kind of in the earth in general. Brown is a symbol of density and lack of radiance. It can also be seen as someone living in poverty, as you can see, like through monks or people of priesthood didn't want to think that they were greedy. Black is basically the opposite of white. There's no fullness of life, rather an absence of it. It can show a void within the icon or the icon surroundings. Yellow was typically used to show, represent when Christ was in the tomb, so it's kind of shows sadness kind of within the church. And this is just kind of, more of the colors broken down to a little bit more basic focus. So one of the biggest concentrations with icons within Christianity is whether or not it's actually biblical. Certain denominations think they are not good for the church because icons can be seen as a form of idolatry within the church. Protestant church does not believe in icons, so there's a pretty big split between the denominations on the subject. However, according to churches that do agree with icons, they see it more as showing virtues of love, peace, purity, forgiveness, etc., things like that. Because they think that these icons are not meant to be sentimental, and they shouldn't actually replace the practice of Christianity. They're just kind of set to put people in the mood, I guess you could say, before they go into prayer and things like that. And this is just our works cited, kind of where we got a lot of our information. If you guys have any more questions, you can either look there, and I look forward to hearing any feedback in the comments. Thanks, guys.